So let's talk a little bit about the art of learning. Not a shameless plug on the blog, but if you've ever read my blog, it's about life lessons learned. And as I started learning late in life, unfortunately for me. But so wanted to start with a little Dr. Seuss here. He says, the more you study, the more you know. The more you learn, the more places you will go. And I think that's very true. Confucian say, study the past if you should define the future. So we're talking about places we'll go, and we're talking about directing the future, which is one of the reasons why we continually learn and why we seek to learn. And then finally, a man or woman of knowledge increases strength. It's a proverb. So knowledge becomes power. Knowledge is power, whether it's physical knowledge, emotional knowledge, physical strength, emotional strength, or mental strength. You know, a lot of people will go and spend hours at the gym. You're probably guessing I'm not one of them. To try to work on their mental or physical strength. My gym is my mental and emotional strength. Mental in learning, emotional in spirituality. So everybody has their own thing. So be your own thing. But today we're going to talk a little bit mostly about the physical, mental, and emotional strength. We're going to hone down on the mental strength and tie it into learning. So I have a demonstration. And I'm going to ask Andrea Goldberg to come up. Andrea is going to play the part of a would-be sales profession in our industry.
It's a stretch.
It's a stretch, but she is a great method actor. So she's going to be playing that role. And I'm going to ask Carl to come up, Carl Mitchell. If you haven't met Carl is the owner and president of Shepard. And Carl's going to play the role of the boss. And we gave him his lines last night, and so he stayed up and studied them. So I want to talk a little bit about the knowledge as far as a work-life balance, it's about balance and leverage. And each day, when we're talking about balance, I hear a lot of times people talk about the work-life balance, but there's more to balance than just work-life balance. There's balance of commitment to contentment. That might be, how hard am I working? You might feel like you got a good work-life balance, but then at work you might say, I'm working real hard, but I'm not content with what I'm doing. I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I feel like that I'm not getting anywhere. So there might be a contentment, you might be out of sorts there. And then there's an engagement energy balance. How much energy you're having to put into whatever you're engaged to doing might be out of whack too. So Andrea here she's working on her effort against task here to create balance in her life. Everybody give it up for Andrea. All right, you're out of balance again. Here, push back down. We got to get you balanced again. Okay, Andrea's balanced, right? Well, all of a sudden, the would-be boss comes along, and he's decided he wants Andrea to run some analysis on her accounts. So he's going to give Andrea some tasks to do. So he drops the task on Andrea. He's off to the golf course now, and Andrea just her whole day just went out of whack. So Andrea, try to lift the task again. So Andrea's putting a lot more effort into her day, but she is not able to lift that. So what do you think Andrea typically does? I'll give you a hint. I'm usually on the other end of that call. Richard, I need help. So, I go over here. Here, kiddo, move over to your side. Move over to your side. All right. So now me and Andrea together are working on it. And we're lifting it. Well, as you can see, now we're both putting a lot of energy and effort into it. So what we do is I say, Andrea, you and I are just working too hard, okay? I want to go play golf with Carl. So let's figure this out. So let's get educated. So Andrea does this. Education. This is the sandbox down here. We're moving the fulcrum of this so that Andrea can create balance again. As you can see, she's got a well-balanced life now, and I'm back on the golf course with Carl. So y'all give it up for our, thank you. I thought Carl throwing the task on there was just excellent. Didn't y'all think so? So, as you can see, by leveraging learning, we can change the balance in our life. I say this to our team all the time as they're coming on board, and we have a lot of young managers in our company as we've been growing, and it's more than just don't sweat the small stuff. It's more about understanding that you get to a point where if you have the proper training and the proper knowledge, you can make decisions much faster and you become much more efficient. And you don't have to have as much collaboration. And I'm not against collaboration, but what is the difference between collaboration and affirmation? Well, I think too often times with the lack of education, we turn collaboration into affirmation. It's a simple decision we need to make. Are we going to have, here at the hotel, are we going to have chicken or beef? Well, somebody make that decision. We don't need to make that decision as a group. We don't need to collaborate on it. We don't need to have 15 committee meetings. We don't need to run it up the flagpole, back down the flag on simple things. But a lot of times I think what happens is an insecurity kicks in us where we feel like that we need affirmation that we're making good decisions on what we're doing, so we call it collaboration. And then we set up a meeting. We have the meeting. And I saw something the other day that I thought was great. It said, I just spent 2 hours in a meeting that could have been done in an email. Then somebody wrote me back and said, I just got copied on a chain of emails that was about 65 emails long that could have been a 10-minute meeting. So touche, it could go either way. So when we try to seek out knowledge, to leverage it, to make the task in life, make us more efficient, more effective, I'm going to venture to guess and ask you a rhetorical power question on this is, if you felt like that knowledge would make you more efficient, more effective, both personally and professionally, wouldn't you find value in knowledge? So we need to be seekers of learning. So I wrote down some things that just kind of my own paint by numbers guide to a little bit on the learning thing. Number one, you might want to write these down. Number one, set goals and objectives, okay? For learning, you need to set goals and objectives and make a plan and then write it down. If you don't take anything else from this would-be attempt at a session this morning, a Harvard MBA study said that they took a group of graduates in the MBA program and said, do you have goals for your career? 84% did not have goals. 13% had goals but didn't write them down. 3% had goals and they wrote them down. 10 years later, they went back and interviewed the same group of MBA graduates. The ones who had goals, the 13%, were earning 3 times more than the 84%. The ones that wrote them down, that last 3% was earning 10 times more than the other 97 percentile. If you have a goal, it's just a thought unless you put it on paper and hold yourself accountable to it. So in learning, it's the same thing. Don't be a happenstance learner. Number 2, change your belief system. I went to a seminar, leadership seminar, that said you can't change somebody's behavior by trying to correct their behavior. You can only change behavior when you change the core belief system. They, in this seminar, and study they went to, they used the analogy of an associate who comes to work late. They said it doesn't make sense to yell at them for being late. Don't write them up for being late, because if they're coming in late, especially habitually, they don't have a tardiness problem. They have a core belief problem. Somewhere in their mind, they believe that it's okay to come into work 15, 20, 30 minutes late. They believe that. So you have to go back and address the belief system. Transcend that into business. You know, when you're trying to sell space on your floor and you're struggling to get people to buy into the show. We're going to have a slide tangent here on sales, so I'll step up to the front. And I tell our sales team all the time, what do you think the greatest lie in business is? We don't have that in our budget. That's a lie. Okay? What that means is I see no value in this, so I'm not going to spend any money. There's lots of things that we did in this meeting particularly where we're over budget. But at the end of the day, we saw value in it for you, so we did it. So when we're calling on people in our business and they tell us that they don't have it in their budget, we know that we failed on the value proposition. If you're talking to exhibitors and they're telling you that they don't have it in the budget to come to their show, then they're failing to connect it. So you've got to change their belief system. You don't need to convince them that, you know, to why your show is great. You need to convince them of why they're going to be successful and make them believe that by coming to your show. So anyway, back to your belief system. If you're like me, and I hope you're not, I spent the early formidable years of my life running from education. You know, I wanted to it was my goal to get out of school as quickly as possible because I hated reading. I hated it. And I mean, more than just dislike, I hated it. So I spent a lot of time running from that, and it's a major regret for me as I go through life. And I think that's one of the reasons why now I read so much and try to get educated, because I do see the value of it. But I had to change my core belief, and I didn't do it on my own. I had some great mentors in my life, like, you know, Carl was a very, very big influence on my learning life, and the way when I first started working with Carl, you know, he used to give me about a book a week to read, and hated it, but I read them, but I'm glad I did. So start changing your belief system. Now go after. So if you believe in learning, you believe in furthering your education. Thirdly, figure out your learning style. I'm not going to do a show of hands, just because when I'm sitting down there, I hate that. But I would venture to guess statistically that probably less than 20% of this room knows what your learning style is, and probably less than 10% of the room has ever actually went and tested on what your learning style is. 3 different styles of learning. You've got the visual learning, auditory learning, and tactical, you know, touch and feel learning. There's tools that you can go on the internet and figure it out, but if you figure out what your best, some people just kind of intuitively know a little bit about what their best learning style is. But, for me, I have to visually see everything. I'm better at when, we get a new, if we get a new software program, I'm not going to read a manual. That's not me. I'm also not going to be able to listen to somebody tell me how to do it. I got to go in and work on it. So that's my own style. So once you determine what your learning style is, then you can actually go and seek education that teaches you in the style that you learn. Number 4, make learning connected. You can, for me as a sales leader for years, probably 50% of the books that I read were on sales. 50% of the books were on some type of leadership. And then within that leadership, I broke those down into different ones. And I guess that technically my math doesn't work out, because not 100% of the books that I read were exactly like that. There was maybe 2% that was something for fun. But connect your learning to what it is you're trying to achieve. And this is another one of my shot across the bow to social media is, and we were joking about this and talking about this content. I said, unfortunately, in our society today, we're investing more time in learning about somebody that you went to high school with 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, however your age is. We're seeing what their restroom habits are on Facebook, and everybody's learning that. So, how many hours last week did you spend looking at Facebook or Twitter or social media to see what the Kardashians are up to? And then how many of it was spent doing something for your craft? So, get the learning connected to your life. It doesn't, and with the social media, if that's your hobby, that's your hobby. My hobby is golf. I do read some books on golf, how to play golf. Doesn't help, but I'd still read them. Make learning valuable. Learning is precious as gold. It really is. Carl and I had breakfast with somebody early this week, and I'm going to leave his name out of it. He's not in our industry, so it really doesn't matter. But we were talking about trade shows, and he was funny. We said, so the show you went to was in Vegas. How do you feel about the Vegas venue? He said, I hate it. I said, yeah? Is there anybody in here from Vegas, by the way? Well, I meant Vegas market. You guys live in Vegas. Okay. I just don't want to offend anybody that's like trying to sell Vegas. He said, I hate it. And I said, why? He said, I took my team, there's 20 of them, I think. He said, I took 20 of my team out there to get educated on our industry. He said, you know what they learned? To stand on 14 at the blackjack table. He said, that's all they learned. And he said, and then we get in the plane to fly back to Atlanta, and they're all in their seats because they're hungover and drunk, from their experience, and they learned nothing at the conference, So, because his team didn't see value in learning, they didn't realize what a precious opportunity that it was. You're here, hopefully, because you want to invest in yourself, and you're wanting to invest in learning it, itself. So thank you for that. And, carpe diem, seize the day. You take everything and just realize how great it is. And I'm going to refer back to this again with, because Carl was my mentor in business. Early on, he set up, we had breakfast once a month for 2 hours, and he just would sit and talk to me about the industry, talk to me about business, talk to me about customer service, talk to me about shining my shoes, because he thought my shoes need to be shined. I mean, whatever it took. Everything to teach me about business, we did. And that was very precious time to me, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And Shepard invested in me to send me to training classes, and I would go to IAEE and PCMA and ASAE, and spend time in those classes, knowing how valuable it was, and take it away. So, treat it valuably. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the moment a little bit, and and sure, we're trying to make this meeting fun for you guys because you do this for a living. So we didn't want you just to go to another boring conference. And sorry, I see some of you already yawning, so I'm boring you to death. And then lastly, never stop learning. Okay? Learning is not to fill a void. It is to shape and sculpt the clay. You can't arrive. You never can top off your learning capability because it isn't a capacity thing. It's about taking things and shaping who you are and how you interact with people and how you work with your industries and how you work with each other. So never stop. Always be a student of learning. And if you think you've learned it all, guess what? Go back and learn it again, because what we learned 5 years ago has already changed. It's changed in our industry, it's changed in society, it's changed in the workplace, it's changed in the global economy. Everything's changing, and it's changing every day. So what I learned yesterday, I got to go back and relearn it today, but I got to modernize it to today's world. So regardless of where you're at in life and what your goals are, whether it's to create this balance here, to get ahead. Some people are trying to create balance because they want to get ahead in life. They want to grow personally, grow professionally, grow your event, grow your business. That might be why you're learning and creating. Some people are more content with creating the balance and learning to create an opportunity to contribute. Not everybody has the goal to rise to the top of the summit. Some are content with living in the moment, but needing that balance in life, and part of that balance is feeling like you're a contributor. And then the last is just about sustaining. You might be at a place in your life right now where it's not about hitting the summit. It's not about it's not about making some formidable contribution to whatever. But sometimes it's just about sustainability. It's about making sure you're happy. It's making sure that maybe you're at some place in your life where you don't really know where your destination is, or you don't really exactly know where you're going. So sustainability of balance is to where you can enjoy the ride. I think we used to call it stop and smell the roses. Well, it's not about stopping and smelling the roses these days because, well, first of all, roses are now virtual, so you can't smell them. Secondly, there's really no time to stop because you lose momentum and then you never can catch back up. So it's, if you don't know where you're going and you haven't decided what your destination is, enjoy the ride. Be like my dog. Well, just stick your head out the window and your tongue. Now, people might think you're crazy for doing that, but, hey, you have a good time. So sustainability, contribution, getting ahead. Whatever it is, create that balance. So I wanted to try to get us finished a little bit early during my topic slide. So we're about 15 minutes early. Because particularly I wanted to give you guys an opportunity everywhere we could to interact with the speaker. If you got some questions or comments or whatever, if you just want to talk with each other. I know that you can learn more from each other than you can learn from me. I can tell you that. So just wanted to do that. So wanted to ask now if anybody's got any questions or comments. We got a comment here.
Can you give us some tips on taking out the distraction from learning. So you had a great example of social media. There's a lot of other things in life, social events, dinners with friends, whatever those things are that you're trying to keep all in balance, but end up being a distraction to your time for learning. How do you get rid of those distractions?
Well, two things. Covey said first things first, which is, and which has always been a, kind of the principle that I've went off of, even if it's down to, if I'm getting to where there's too many distractions like that, I will totally turn my email off if I'm working on my computer, because you can't hear boom or you've got mail without going, hey, I got mail. Okay, that's a, so, I purposely will put my phone to where, that it's not blinking, okay? I'll answer it, that's me, but I have to turn the email off because, I'm like a squirrel. I mean, I just get so distracted, close the office door, whatever. So first things first. The second thing I'll do, and I won't get into the whole dynamics of this, but if you wanted to read up on it, our company entered into a program this year at Betty Ford. No, I'm just kidding. We started a program this year. It's called 40X, and it's a derivative of Stephen Covey. It's down the road, and it's the 4 disciplines of execution. And one of the primary benefits of execution is that what you're talking about with the industry functions, the email, the social media, that's what they call the whirlwind. And you get caught up in the whirlwind and you never get anything done. So what happens in 40X is you set your wildly important goal. This is my goal. Then you say, these are things I've got to do every week regularly to hit that goal. And then every week you make specific commitments to push that lead measure for that week. So, now, you specifically sit down and you have to turn the email off, and then you have to make decisions of, yes, it's important to go to that social media thing, or yes, it's important to go to that industry event, or yes, it's this, but does that feed my goal? Does that feed my lead measure? We could give you an all-day seminar on 40X. It took 2 days to teach it me because I'm slow, but we can go through that. But just read up on it. And then really what it comes down to is the same Covey principle, first things first. We can fill our day with things that we like to do and never get to the things that we need to do. Any other questions or comments? Questions, comments? We got a question and or comment here.
I'm just wondering if you have any tips on, I find myself doing a lot of learning, going to talks and all that kind of stuff, and I don't have a good system for revisiting what I learned and kind of keeping it current. Like, it all pours in and I take notes, and I know I act on some of it because it's all percolating, but I'm just wondering if you had any tips on keeping that learning fresh.
Yes. Do you have anybody in your organization that's up and coming? Like, I'm not going to necessarily say younger. It could be just somebody that's new to your organization.
Yeah.
Okay. The easiest way to keep learning fresh is to take what you learn and start teaching it. Find you somebody you can mentor. Everything you learn, make notes of what you've learned, and find somebody to mentor. I have 8 mentor sessions a month with different people on our staff. And I keep a file on each one of them, and I ask them what they want to know, what they want to learn, and then I make a little bit of my own assessments, and then I'll take stuff that I learn, and then I'll go back. And our team will tell you, anytime I go to a conference, I usually come back and I send an email out to everybody, here's what I learned. So pass it along. Or as Kevin Spacey said, send the elevator back down. That'll help. Anybody else? Question, comment?
This is just sort of a comment to that. I actually have to present every time I go to a conference now, which is really helpful because you then put it down. But not only that, but you teach your team. I like the mentor idea too. And for you too, one thing I do is, and someone a while ago told me, just start scheduling some time, like in your day. Maybe it's just 2 hours, 2 days a week that you know you have to get, whether it's specific tasks or to meet your personal goals, done, and schedule it in and make sure it's scheduled. And whether you turn off your emails or whatever, but you scheduled it, and then you're accountable. Yeah.
Richard, we have a question right down in front here, or a comment.
Matt?
Run, Richard, run!
You know, my question was on the change your belief section. It resonates with me pretty strong. We've got a fairly diverse team, if you could imagine, and you know, I guess I'd look for some guidance in how do you identify those individual team members' beliefs?
Well, I mean, there's no shortcut to really sitting down, spending time with them. And, you know, I think a series of questions, in good conversation with somebody, asking enough questions, even down to, you know, part of it's cognitive, just trying to figure out what that belief is. You know, part of it is, you know, just the study of psychology of kind of understanding, you know, I've done with probably, I don't say maybe 10 or 12 different customer groups where we go in and do the DISC profile. We, you know, take the test in advance and then we go in and talk about it. You know, and your belief system might be, you know, compliancy, and you're working with a team member who is more of an influencer. So basically you're talking about, in our world, a account executive who is very compliant and a salesperson who's very influential. And they don't mash and meet sometimes because the salesperson doesn't give you any information and the AE never has enough information. So you're not going to change their belief systems there on that type of stuff. So part of it is that. But then part of it is you know, if you get down to, you see it's a performance issue or something like that, then you just have to ask them a series of questions of, you know, because, you know, what is it that makes you feel like that is good enough? And, you know, and not put them in a defensive posture that says, you know, you're coming down on me. Embrace it and the value of what they're bringing to the table and saying, you know, not I'm trying to change you, but more I'm trying to understand you. So just there's no shortcut to just the communication.
Thank you.
You're welcome.